Hello and welcome to a new Google project in Practical Sheets. Today it will be a combined project between Google Forms and Google Sheets, and it's a really nice thing we're going to do is we're going to create a consecutive number. Each time I answer a new form, for example, my reservations of my tickets, whatever, then when I collect my answers, I'm going to have a custom column where I'm going to have a reference number, a consecutive number. This is really cool if you need to, I don't know, number your invoices, your tickets, your reservations, whatever you need. You will have a unique number other than the timestamp, because timestamp is more complex. So it's a number that you can customize if you want to begin in 1, in 10, in 20, or whatever. And you can add 1 and 1. So let's do a quick test so you know what you're getting into. Let's go here. And you can see that I don't have an answer, a question that is called ref. This is created automatically. So we're going to see two ways of creating it. One with a Sheets formula with its pros and cons, and one with Google Apps Script. It's not such a complex script. It's really, really short. Maybe I'll take a bit longer explaining it. You know, I like to do it from scratch always, but I think it will be really nice and really useful. So before starting, let me invite you to the YouTube channel where each week you'll have a new Google Sheets, Google Forms, Google Apps Script video. Or if you want to support me even more, you can go to the Patreon page. If you don't want to listen to me talking 20 minutes, then you can go to the Patreon page and download the template. And if you have any questions, you can ask them there. Thank you for tuning in, and let's begin. So we're going to begin by creating a Google form. The easiest way is to do forms or form.new. We're going to create a very simple form, maybe just 2 questions, RSVP, we're going to call it. And the first question will be the name. And the second question will be the course. You're going to confirm your participation in a course. And that's it. Let's do a couple of courses. We're going to go to settings, and we're going to set up that it's going to collect email addresses. Here, responder input. If I go back to my questions, you'll see that now I have an email. Here you can go one of 2 ways. The first way, responses, and then you'll click this link to Sheets. This will create a new spreadsheet. You can even link it with an existing spreadsheet, but for now we're going to create a new one called RSVP responses. Let's do create. You could change the name if you want. So here we have an automatic Google Sheet that each time I have a new response, let's do the test. Let's preview and input any email, any name, and a course, and hit submit and go to our RSVP responses. And it's automatic. Okay, so this is the first route we could go. And here, if you want to do a consecutive, you could do one of 2. You could insert a column to the left, and here you could create consecutive ref. We could do it manually, you know, we could do 1, but the thing is, each time a new response comes, I'm not going to put anything, so I would have to put 2. Another way is to use the sequence function. So I would do sequence, and then I'm just going to say that count A, how many columns does this B column has, and subtract 1 because I'm starting on row number 2. I'm going to close it, and here I have 2, and in the moment that I add another one, automatically I'm going to have 3. And this sequence has other things you could change. You could, for example, start in a number, start in 10, put a text before ref number 1, ref number 2, and so on. So you can see some of my other videos where we do this in detail. But this is a first way, and I think it works really nice. You don't have to do anything else. The problem with this is that it's a function. So what is the problem with a function? That if you, for example, insert one row, if you're going to do some manual manipulation, then this may present some errors. Or for example, you insert a new row here, then everything will displace itself. Okay, so if you're going to leave it alone and just let it fill out automatically with Google Forms, then there's no problem. You can leave it like that. But if you are going to insert some manual rows, or you're going to do some ordering or filtering, then you need to be careful, because this won't be the better solution. This would work in many of your cases, but in some others, it may not work, because it's better not to have a function, but to have at times a stamp, a value that is written 1 and 2 and 3. This is where we're going to count on Google Apps Script. So here we can have, again, 2 rows. If you have done this, if you are collecting your answers and have connected Google Forms with Google Sheets, then you can do a couple of things. So you don't have to bring all the answers manually, because this would be one of my preferred solutions, to bring the answers manually, but it may imply a little bit more of code. So instead of that, we could do the following. I'm going to copy this to another column. Let's do some zoom out. So I'm going to copy this to here, and maybe I have to change my column to B. And then I'm going to remove this. So I'm going to put it at the end of my answers, and it would be good to put this F4. It could be in AA or in BB or whatever. So if I would change my form and add another question, let's say we're going to add last name, and I go here, then you can see that it's adding the last name here, but my consecutive ref will continue to work perfectly. So this is a nice thing. So this you need to take into account. Okay, so this is the first method. And the second method, we're going to use some Google Apps Script directly from my Google Sheets, not my Google Forms. This is where I'm saying that there are a lot of ways we could do this. One way is doing the code in Google Forms. In this case, we're going to do it in Google Sheets, so we don't have to change much my bringing of the answers. There's a way where you can bring all of the answers and do some calculated fields and be very, very flexible, but we may do this in another video. So we're going to extensions, AppScript. You're going to create a function called create consecutive. Create. Here I'm going to put an E, and I'll let you know why. Let's console log our E, and if I do play here, it won't bring me an error, but it won't show me anything because my event is undefined. For this to work, for this event to work, I need to go here to this triggers section, and then I'm going to add a trigger. I'm going to use the only function I have right now, that is called create consecutive. And here I'll leave the event source from a spreadsheet, and the event type, I'm going to create form submit. This will only work if I have a form attached to my sheets that we already did at the beginning of the video. I have a video when I show you how to link forms and sheets in various ways. Just give it the permissions. Okay, now let's do it again. Let's test it, but now we cannot test it from here because it will continue to be undefined if I run it from here. So I need to test it in the live setting, that is sending the form, submitting another response. So I'm going to submit a response and submit. Let's go to our executions to see my log. Here, I see that this is where I triggered it or executed it from my trigger. Okay, so here there are a lot of things, but the one I'm going to need is this range, because this is the range where I'm posting my answer. So when I answer this right now, couple of minutes ago, I wrote, or Google Apps Script or Google Forms wrote here. So in this range. So I want to know what range was it. So I know that there is an object within my E object or event object. Keep in mind that I could name this event or however you want. So go to e.range, and this is a range object. So in this range object, I could say get a1 notation to see which range is it, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Let's save again and again. I cannot run it from here. I have to run it, sending another response. So let's do it. Let's go again to our executions. Let's see them in action. Let's refresh. Sometimes you need to refresh a couple of times for you to see the logs. And you can see A6, E6. So this is where actually A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I needed to write something in this last one to the right of E. There are a couple of ways we could do this. For now, we're going to save this e.range in a variable called range. And then we're going to use some of the methods of the ranges. One method is called get last column. So this should tell me what is the last column of my answers. So in this case should be 5. But given that I need to write it on the 6, then if I do +1, I'm going to save this as the column to right. Column to right. Something like that. And then the row to right is the same row of the range. So I could do range dot get row. I think this is not get last column, this is get columns. The thing with the E is that I'm a bit blind. So this range, I'm not sure if this is get columns, I'm not sure if this is get row. So one way of helping yourself is to do another range down, and then you can comment it. For example, you can do spreadsheet up dot get active spreadsheet dot get active sheet. Then you can do get data range, any method that will get the range, and we can call this test range. So now here I could do test range and see if these methods work. For example, get columns get num columns. So it's good we did this. Get num columns. And then the other one would be the row dot get row. Yeah, get row works. So it's good to have this test range. For now we're going to comment it out, or you can leave it because we're not using it anywhere else. And this range with row, we're going to save it in a row to right. So now I could do range. So this range, let's do again, comment this, erase the comment, and let's see if from the range we can go to the sheet. Dot sheet, something with sheet, get sheet. So I'm going to go to the sheet of the range. There are other ways to do it, but we could do it directly from here. Get sheet. And we're going to call this sheet or SS. And then we'll say sheet dot get range. We're going to get the range from the first is the row. So row to right, and then column to right. And finally, we're going to set the value of our consecutive. Actually, we haven't done the consecutive. For now, let's just put a 1. And that's it. Let's save. And let's test it. Let's go here. And you can see that it has put the 1, written a number 1 in the consecutive graph. So this is what I need. Now, in order to get a consecutive, what we should do is go to the last row, look for the number, and add 1. That's it, nothing more. So before setting our value, we're going to set a value called consecutive. And we're going to create a variable called consecutive. It will be sheet.get get range. We're going to go to the call to write. That in our case is num columns plus 1, but if you have any other columns, it could be num columns plus 2 or plus 3 or plus 4. Or if you have it at the beginning, like we had at the beginning of this video, then you would say the call to write will be just 1, and that's it. So the consecutive will be, first I need the row. So the row would be row to write minus 1. Why? Because it's the row to the top of the next to last. Because let's say I send a new one, so this will print here, so I need to go 1 on top and get this number and add 1. That's it. So I'll do row to write minus 1 and set the value, and get the value and add 1, and that's it. Let's save and let's test. Here it is, 2. This looks great, but there is one problem. What happens if we are starting? What happens with the first one? The first option is that let's do it. I'm going to delete all of this, and I'm going to go to my form, and I'm going to erase all the responses. Here, delete all responses, and we're going to send a new one. What do you think it will happen? First, I have here some mistake. Well, actually, it did work perfectly here because the last row was 0. But but I had a mistake. The mistake is that I need not only to delete it, but to delete the rows. So I'm going to right-click, delete the rows, and then test it again. So here is the problem, the first one. So what we can do is just a condition. What we're going to do, there are many ways of doing this. What we're going to do is that this consecutive, we're going to initialize it as 1. So here I'm going to say consecutive will be 1. And then I'll say that consecutive will be this other thing we did before. But we're only going to set it to that if this row to write is greater than 2. So if, the if row to write is greater than 2, then this will be. If not, it will remain 1, or the one that you want to initialize it. So let's save it one more time. I'm going to again delete all these rows. You don't need to delete the answers from forms if you don't want, but you need to delete the rows. Not only delete with the suppress or delete button, but you need to remove the column. Let's test it one last time, I hope. Let's give a name. Submit. So here you have number 1, and let's do the second one. And here you have number 2, and so on. So we lasted a bit more doing this code. You can see that it's not such a complex code. I'm going to delete all of this, and we could remove this, and you could simplify it even more. But I think it's not that a complex code, but it will help you to have a reference number or a ID number for each of the answers. This will help, for example, if you're doing reservations or tickets or something like that. So I hope you liked it, and if you like it, you can go to the YouTube channel, subscribe there. You will get a new video each week. And if you want to go further, you will go to the Patreon page where you'll get the templates for this. You don't have to follow me along. You're just going to copy the code and download the template and use it for your projects. And you can ask me any questions you want there. Thank you so much, and see you next time.